Win big with new DRF All Access Past Performances. With one best-in-class product, you now get all three past performance formats. Go to DRF.com and use coupon code 1FREEPP for a free single card today.
Dan Illman, Ashley Mailloux kicking off a pick 4 on California Crown Saturday at Santa Anita with race number 7. Let's throw up the field for the John Henry Turf Championship. $750,000 on the line. Some hard-hitting older turf horses going a mile and a quarter. And Gold Phoenix is just one of my favorite horses in Southern California. He was 4th in the Breeders' Cup Turf last year. And he's come back rolling at 6 with 2 graded stakes wins. And he just beat many of these last time out in the Del Mar Handicap.
If you love horse racing, I think you have to love Gold Phoenix, Little Red Feather, Kyle Frey, the partnership that they've formed, especially in these last couple of efforts with this gelding. It's been very impressive. And the Del Mar Handicap, he ran his race. It was a beautifully timed ride where he was able to get up by neck over Dicey Mochara. And it's a key race, right? We have 11 entered here, 6 of them. The 6 horses in the Del Mar Handicap, they're all wheeling back into this spot. But there's some new faces in here as well, Dan, and some horses that maybe need to step up or they're just making their second start stateside. There's a lot going on in this 11-horse field.
And we'll throw up our Timeform US Pace projector. Pace often makes the race in these longer distance turf affairs. Cabo Spirit stretching out for his 3rd start of the year. He seems to be improving incrementally with each start. And stretching out to this longer distance, he figures to show a little bit of early speed. I think Big Blue Line is another horse that can be forwardly placed. Not sure if turf is his game, but he's another horse stretching out. Dicey Mochara showed speed last time out. He's sort of versatile and can do it either way.
Yeah, he'll certainly get more of a forward trip maybe in that first flight or maybe, I don't know, in the top 4 or 5 early with this deep field. But Cabo Spirit does draw the inside. He likes to go. He's not typically necessarily on the lead, but go to those races, say 2 and 3 back where he's really close to it, Dan. The splits were quite quick for those fractions, and now he's going longer. He's going a mile and a quarter for the first time in his career.
If this pace is hot, keep an eye on the late-running, long-striding number 11 Balnikov, who has the LP flag over his chiclet. That indicates he has the fastest Timeform US late pace rating. We'll kick things off with Cabo Spirit. 3rd off, a little bit of a layoff. They ran him in an allowance race last time out. I thought the trip was there for him. He just didn't kick on home. Maybe he's slowly racing himself back into shape. That was only his 2nd start in 2024. He needs to prove himself at this distance and against this sort of class.
It's tough to say last time out, too, his performance. I thought it was good, but when you look at Air Force Red, they let him get to the front, and he just cruised on the lead. He's a very talented racehorse, and when even at a mile and a 16th with that level of competition, when you see 48 and 3 to the half, pretty much say goodbye at that point for especially the horse that can be game on the front end. So Air Force Red packs a wallop. They're actually on the undercard, also participating in stakes races this Saturday at Santa Anita, and I do think Cabo Spirit's trending in the right direction, and he has been in softer spots this year. Last year, he had a pretty tough campaign. That's why he went 0 for 8. But I would like to see a little bit more for him, especially against such a dense field.
I agree. He was a very good 3-year-old. He was a graded stakes winner. They put him in some tough spots last year, and it's questionable to see if he's gotten better since his 3-year-old campaign. He should show speed. 7 Wonders is the number 2, and he's coming off a win. Well, then he was disqualified, but he finished 1st in a first-level allowance race, which is an achievement because he's been stuck in that first-level allowance condition for a long, long time, since January of 2023. I like this horse's tactical speed. Distance shouldn't be a problem for him. I think there's a major class question he has to address.
The class is the main question. I think you hit the nail on the head. The distance shouldn't be an issue. And I think when you maybe looked at the effort July 26th, you may have different, answers to that question. Is the distance okay? Because he did tire, but it was his first time in quite some time going a mile and 3/8. He had several starts at the mile. He stretched out. He had the lead late and surrendered. And I thought last time out, if you, draw a line through the fact that he did impede some of his foes in there, then I think it was a good performance. But the class is very tough to gauge. Another horse who's 1 for 15 in his career. He's tried graded stakes competition and just stakes competition in general once in his career.
There's some salty old timers in here with class, and we know what they are. We may not know what the 3 Divin Propo is. This is a very lightly raced runner that's only had 3 starts in North America for Phil D'Amato, including a very successful performance at Del Mar last time out, going a mile and 3/8. Another horse that utilized good tactical speed. When the jock asked him to go, He went immediately, opened up the lead, and wins in likable fashion. This horse was a stakes winner going 1.25 miles in France last year, and I think he's got a lot of upside.
Me too. And I think anywhere from 1.25 miles to probably 1.5 miles is his preferred distance. I think when you look at the effort two back at Del Mar, 1.125 miles, he was rolling. But by the time he gets rolling, the race was over. And that's why he finished fifth. He only missed by 3/4 of a length. I thought it was a really nice effort. And, so far, in my opinion, he's really done little wrong, I think, out of the wild cards in here. He's one that I would be willing to use in the exotics just because, hey, his running style fits well. He likes the distance. And his resume at this point, I know he hasn't been in stakes competition stateside, but it's strong enough to at least warrant a long look at him.
Masterpiece is a pretty cool horse. He was a group winner in Chile to start his career. He won the Eddie Reed in 2022. He won the Fort Marcy earlier this year. He was a graded stakes winner last year. He usually shows up to play. I just couldn't find the excuse last time out in the Del Mar handicap. I thought the trip was there for him. He was sitting just off Dicey Mochara. It's not like the pace was very fast. He just could never get past that horse and eventually tired. Maybe it's a situation where he just has to be covered up and didn't want to be prompting the pace on the outside.
Maybe. I mean, I looked at the performance. I thought he was in a good trip early on, and then he just didn't have what he needed late. So for him, going 1.3 miles to 1.25 miles, maybe that suits him well. I'm just starting to wonder, though, at this point in his career, when you look at just 2024 alone, does he want to go this far? Does he maybe want to wheel back to 1.125 miles? And his connections obviously have the confidence that he wants to go a further bout of ground compared to what he could get elsewhere. But I also go down the page too, Dan, and I just look at some of his performances, and he's been a little bit better on the East Coast. He's not fared as well out in California.
When I think of the 5 Dicey Mochara, I'm Captain Ahab. He's my white whale. I've been chasing him for a very long time, and it just hasn't worked out. Let's watch his performance in the Del Mar handicap. He got a very easy lead, as you can tell by those fractions, 51 and change. Masterpiece on the outside. Gold Phoenix gets the rail run. In behind in the teal comes our late closer, Balnikov, and on the outside is Rock Emperor. I thought Dicey Mochara had it until he didn't.
Yeah, I needed him to have it. I can remember that vividly. I used him on top, and he came up a little bit short. I thought it was a good performance, though, as you kind of go down the page. They were trying different things with him. In some of his races, he was further back. He was forward. I think he looked very comfortable in the lead. Curious what Hector Berrios will do once again. He was aboard him last time out. He put him into action early. Maybe this is a similar trip where they're just going to try to be a little bit more aggressive from the gate, get him to settle and see what he has left late. Another one that's also going to cut back in distance.
They're running the Joe Hirsch Turf Classic in New York this weekend, and the 6 Rock Emperor won that race in 2021. He hasn't done much winning since. He won the Bowling Green in 2022, and he's just been nibbling and nibbling and nibbling. And he's come out to Southern California. It's sort of a similar situation as Masterpiece. He's run well in some races. He just hasn't gotten over the hump. Last time out in the Del Mar handicap, maybe he was compromised by the lack of pace and having to go outside while the winner saved ground and came up the rail. But I have to be honest, I'm getting a little tired of Rock Emperor's act.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, it's also tough when you look at 2024 and his best performance was going 1.75 miles, which how many times a year do you run that distance in North America? I shouldn't say North America. We'll just go with the US and Canada. I'll be a little bit more confident with that number. I can count on one hand on the turf. So those opportunities are very limited, and he did everything right. And maybe it was a little too far for him. Now, you saw he had a little bit of time off. He regrouped, but we're getting that same similar trip when you go back to Del Mar, Santa Anita, May 4th. Just go down the page. With the exception of the Singspiel in the last year, he just doesn't have that late punch. He's just there. He kind of hangs around, and I don't think that's going to cut it in this deep field.
Big Blue Line, the number 7's cross-centered at Churchill Downs. His home base is Kentucky. It'll be interesting to see if Will Walden ships all the way out to try turf, a surface that has not been Big Blue Line's best. If Big Blue Line runs in this race, he's a pace factor at the very least, simply because he's stretching out 1/4 mile in distance.
Yeah, tough to know what to do with him. Obviously, he's had 2 turf drives. One was okay. The other one, not so great. And he faced some decent horses in that race back on June 6th at Churchill. But another one that regardless, he has a couple of things he needs to answer. The distance, 1.25 miles, go down the page. The furthest he's gone is 1.3 miles. You have to factor the turf into that. You also have to factor the stakes competition aspect because he's tried stakes here and there, but just one of them graded in his career.
While the number 8, Elin Sinal, finished behind 5 of these last time out in the Del Mar Handicap, he already had a ready-made excuse going in because it was his first start in North America, his first start off of a lengthy layoff. And if you just wanted to have him in there to get his feet wet, I can certainly understand. He's lightly raced enough that he has some upside. He should be sharper for his second start off a long layoff. We'll learn a lot more about his overall quality in this race.
Yeah, and you mentioned it. Like first start off a layoff, first time at Del Mar, I should say, excuse me, but in California, it's a lot to go by, and it's a lot to try to do in one start. And he had plenty of time off, so I think he probably needed the race. Whether I still think he's this level of competition, that remains to be seen, and maybe he'll prove me wrong if he can sneak into the money here. But he'll need to show more. I think it's interesting to look. You know, he raced just about a month ago. He only has that one published drill. They actually went to the dirt this time rather than the turf. And it was respectable work. So we'll see what he can do here.
Gold Phoenix was really good last time out in the Del Mar Handicap, and the ride was really, really good. They understood that the pace wasn't going to be fast. And Gold Phoenix, a horse that likes to usually run from mid-pack or farther behind, they kept him up close. He sat the beautiful pocket trip. The rail opened up. He shot on through. You give Gold Phoenix those kind of trips, he's going to parlay them into a victory more often than not. Now, what sort of trip he gets here, I'm not sure, but it's nice to know he's classy and adaptable and usually shows up with an honest effort.
And you have to thank him and Kyle for I have a ton of confidence. They've been able to win 2 of their last 3 starts together. And, you know, Kyle rode this horse several years ago earlier in his career and knows him very well. Some of his best races have been with Kyle. And you talked about that ride. That ride made everything. It was a very good performance. To sneak up on the inside like that can be very difficult. I think he's probably the horse to beat on paper. I know his effort 2 starts back wasn't the greatest, but I did think he had a little bit of trouble. He had more time off. You know, we don't often see him make these consecutive starts like he is now, 3 starts in a row, but hard to knock him last time out.
I know a lot of our friends watching at home are wondering, can the 10 There Goes Harvard run anymore? He had a ton of quality back in the day. He won the Grade 1 Gold Cup at Santa Anita in 2022. He just hasn't raced often since then, and he hasn't won a race since then. And of course, that race was on the dirt. I think I can make some excuses, though, for his recent turf races. The start 3 back in the Shoemaker Mile was his first race over a year layoff. It was a very tough spot. He has reason to get tired at the end, and I thought he was pretty game running on for 4th. He didn't run great in the Eddie Reed 2 starts back. He probably doesn't win with a clean trip, but he's also not getting beat 10 lengths if he doesn't get pinched back in mid-stretch. Interesting that Michael McCarthy puts blinkers off after the Pacific Classic debacle. If he runs his best race, he's right there. That's a big if, demand value.
First time blinkers are off on this guy since 2021, but you have to try something new, right? When things aren't working, you kind of go back to the drawing board and figure out what you can change and what's in your control. And equipment is a good place to start. Pacific Classic, when you go to that race, he was the Grade 1 winner on paper, right? But, you know, he's going to get back onto the turf. He's a 2-time winner on grass. I think in those turf performances, I've liked the trips that he's gotten, even his second place finish. He's been a little bit more forward. So very curious to see what Johnny V is going to do with him in here. The blinkers do come off. And, you know, he hasn't been necessarily very forward in his last couple, but maybe the blinkers have been more of a distraction than a tool to help him focus.
Balnikov ran really well in the Del Mar Handicap. I wonder if he's one of the horses you want to take out of that race. It's a slow pace. That's always going to compromise his style. He's last on the rail turning for home. He has to angle out looking for room, and he fired in the stretch. My major concern is when I talked to Billy Koch, a Little Red Feather, after this horse won the dinner party, he said, boy, this horse just doesn't seem to run his best at Santa Anita. Well, he's got to run this one at Santa Anita.
0 for 8 on the turf course. But this is the thing that I will say is different. I think if you just want to look at 2023, his campaign, I feel like they were trying to figure out what to do with him. And I don't mean that in a bad way or you know, me poking fun at them, but you can see 6.5, a mile and a 16th, back to 6.5. I think they were trying to figure out the sweet spot. And now, since they've been putting him at distances from a mile to a mile and 3/8 recently, and they're not cutting him back, they're not toying around with him, I do feel like he's better this year. And maybe that's going to be the game changer, because the last couple of times we've seen him at Santa Anita, big difference. They've been shorter distances than a mile and a quarter, and they've been much shorter than that. So I'm usually a stickler for the 0 for whatever cases, but I think he's better now. And I think he's at least worth a long look. I can't even talk in the exotics. I just think he proves himself time and time again. And to me, he's on a good roll this year.
Let's take a look at our top picks for the John Henry Turf Championship. It kicks off at pick 4. It's a spread race for me. I think if there goes Harvard goes off 12-15 to 1, I want to give him one more chance to revert to that good form that he showed a couple of years ago. Gold Phoenix is just so logical. He's your top pick, my second pick as well, and we both have the 5 in there.
Yeah, I'm going to use Dicey Mochara underneath. I just think from a pace perspective, Hector Barrios will put this gelding into the race early, and he can at least hang around for a share. I think looking at the non-big names, if you want to say, I thought the 3 was the most intriguing. Had some upside. I really liked those 3 efforts in California, and I think he can take a big step forward. And again, you have to look for a price underneath if you like Gold Phoenix on top.
9-5-3-11 for Ashley. 10-9-5-11 for me. The Grade 2 John Henry Turf Championship. Race number 7 at Santa Anita on Cow Crown Saturday. Good luck. If you enjoyed this video, please click the like and subscribe button below for more great DRF content, including Race of the Days, stakes previews, and lots more. You can find it right here.